Day. Okay.
Go.
It's my great pleasure to welcome Brother Sam, to lead our webinar this evening. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn from a community we've been in touch with for many, many years, I would say. I think you came to a conference a long time ago now,
I did.
and gave a talk. Do you remember?
I do, yes. I must be 30, at least 30 years ago.
It was a long time ago, but we have had the link with the Anglican Franciscan community for many years, the Society of St. Francis, or SSF as it's popularly known. And we've had many of our groups in Assisi. And I think you have spent a lot of your ministry in looking after St. Leonard's Church in Assisi over the years. And our groups have been there. One group was there earlier this year, and I think one or two people from that group are with us tonight. It's an opportunity for us to learn more about the life and the work and the wonderful example of Francis. Brother Sam has worked all over the world, I think in the Solomon Islands, and also in Zimbabwe, as well as in this country, especially now in East London. I should also say that next year in September, we have a pilgrimage to Dorset and a pilgrimage in Dorset, led by Jane Skinner and Stephen Skinner, and we will be based at Hillfield, which is your mother house. And we're staying there for the whole week, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. I think it will be wonderful. But now we're here to listen and learn from Brother Sam about Francis, about creation and the Canticle of the creatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. It's very good to be with you. As I said earlier, I hope my connection of Wi-Fi connection holds out. Please let me know if it's not, and well, we'll see what we can do. But anyhow, it's lovely to be with you here this evening and to share with you. I'm very conscious that this meeting is taking place just what is it? 1 week, less than a week before the opening of the COP30 meeting in Brazil, the
Yes.
United Nations Conference on Climate Change, Intergovernmental Conference on Climate Change. And I think that's a very, significant occasion. I'll say a bit more about that later. But what I want to offer you is perhaps something of the insights of Francis and the Franciscan tradition, which might have some bearing upon what's being discussed in COP30 and on the whole situation which we find ourselves in. Everybody knows that Francis loved animals. It's about the only thing people know about St. Francis of Assisi. You can guarantee if they go to a school, and it's certainly a church school, they'll all put up their hands and say he loved animals. Therefore, unfortunately, it's got a rather reputation for sort of being rather sort of sentimental about animals, particularly of the furry kind, furry and feathery kind. But actually, that doesn't do justice to the profound insight which I think Francis can give us into our relationship, our human relationship with the world around us, with the creatures, with the whole of creation. There's at COP30, there's going to be much talk about how the urgency of restricting carbon emissions which have an effect upon the climate and the climate change, and the urgency and the increasing urgency of the situation. It's very, very likely that the 1.5 degree increase, centigrade increase in average world temperatures is going to be exceeded. There's very little chance that we will restrict ourselves to that. Um, and so at the meeting, I think there are going to be 96,000 people attending the meeting or attend out there in Brazil, flocking from all over, and all sorts of people, different government representatives, but also representatives of environmental organizations, World Wildlife Fund, and so on, all those sort of organizations. But also, I might say, all the oil companies will be there in a big, big way. They'll have huge delegations, and financiers will be there as well. It'll be a deeply contested meeting, um, and well, we'll see if anything comes from it. I mean, the tragedy is that we've been having these meetings now for how many years? Since the late 1990s, and frankly, there's been a lot of talk, but not by any means sufficient action. Um, and I think there's one of the reason why there is insufficient action is partly because we can't agree actually on what our we haven't got an agreed understanding of our human relationship with the world around us, with the natural world. And so without having that as a basis, what is our relationship with the natural world, with the rest of creation, it's quite hard to get agreement on how we are to avoid a situation such as we're facing. I mean, if it's simply based on a fear of what might happen if the climate, if temperature rises above 1.5, it's not very likely that we're going to um, get much agreement. If it's simply on avoiding the tragedy, uh, that's quite a negative reason. What I think Francis does gives us positive reasons why we need to make change. We can cope with any amount of how if we know the why. Jonathan Porritt, the founder of Friends of the Earth, back in the early 2000s, he said what the world needs in the present situation is not so much a cap on climate on carbon emissions, important though that is, I mean, really important though it is, but at a deeper level, what's needed is a fundamental reorientation of the way we think of ourselves in relation to the world around us, to the rest of creation. And he added something akin to a spiritual revolution. I think it's really interesting because actually, I don't think Jonathan Porritt is a Christian, or wouldn't claim to be a Christian, but he actually saw that it was a deep spiritual, theological, philosophical issue, which is at the basis of this. What is our relationship with the natural, with the world around us? And I think that Francis actually can give us some pointers about such a spiritual revolution, a revolution in our understanding of our relationship with the natural world. So that's why I think we've got something to say. Francis and the Franciscan tradition, I think, have something to say about this. What I'm going to look at particularly is the Canticle of Francis, Canticle of the Creatures, which, in a sense, encapsulates or gives us the kernel of his understanding of our human relationship with the natural world. Um, I've actually got it up on my. I can bring it up if you allow me to share. Can I share it on the screen?
Oh, yes.
Am I allowed to share? I can.
You can,
Um, yep, I can do that. Um, so I bring that up. Just a little bit about the canticle itself. Oh, I probably won't be able to get it all on the screen all at the same time. Francis wrote this in the last year of his life. It was composed in 1225, which of course it makes it the 800th anniversary this year of the Canticle of the Creation. Um, he wrote it. It's rather a unique. It is a unique document in that it's a landmark in the transition of the Italian language from from Latin to something like what we have today. It was written in in Francis's Umbrian dialect, which became sort of the basis for for the present day Italian. Every school child will be taught the Canticle of the Creatures, and they'll know how to sing it as well. But in it, Francis gives voice to his, or reveals his relationship with the natural world around us. And what I want to do is to share three things from this. And I mean, I'll be talking for about, I suppose, half an hour altogether, and then perhaps we can come back and have some discussion if that's okay with you, and if the internet's working okay. Are we okay at the moment? Are
Yes,
we all right,
fine.
Yes,
Barbara?
good, thank you.
Good, good, good. So, it begins, Most High, all-powerful good Lord. Yours are the praises, the glory, and the honor, and all blessing. To you alone, Most High, do they belong, and no human is worthy you to name. The song arises out of something which is there deep within Francis and throughout his life, a profound sense of the giftedness of creation, that everything, we receive everything as gift. Earth, air, fire, water, the whole means of life is a precious gift. I mean, he's echoing the Psalms as well. I mean, Psalm 104 is saying the same sort of thing. Um, but what he recognized was that the gift of creation, the gift of each creature, reveals something about the giver. We, through reflecting and receiving and recognizing every creature as gift, we actually have an understanding of the of the nature of the giver. His Francis's earliest biographer, Thomas of Celano, wrote of him quite shortly after Francis died. He delighted in all the works of God's hands, and from the vision of joy on earth, his mind soared aloft to the life-giving source and cause of it all. In every beautiful thing, he saw the one who is beauty itself, and he followed his beloved everywhere by his likeness imprinted in creation. The actual Latin word, or the Italian word there, comes from the Latin, the vestige of in everything, in every creation, the footprint. He saw the footprint of God in every creature, the maker's mark, as it were, which reveals something about the nature of the source, of the giver of all things. This is a profoundly sacramental way of looking at the world. Every creature, every animal, but every plant, every blade of grass, every atom of creation actually can reveal to us, because we receive it as gift, or when we receive it as gift, it can reveal something about the nature of the giver. This is a profoundly this sacramental way of looking at the world sees the world and every creature as having an intrinsic value, a value in itself, just by being a gift, just by being there for us and for the world. Um, uh, and it's actually in contrast to the way our contemporary society, our world, perhaps for the last few hundred years, particularly since the Enlightenment, has tended to view creation. We've tended to see creation as something out there, something apart from us, which we observe, which we manipulate, which we use, which we exploit, which we conquer. We've talked about conquering nature, don't we? Or as Rowan Williams has said, we've come to see the world around us as a giant warehouse of stuff there for our convenience, rather than ourselves as part of a community of creatures living within the mystery of God. So this reverence for everything by being what it is is something I would suggest that Francis shows us as an appropriate and a right way of living in the world and in relation to what's around us. Um, I mean, for instance, uh, it shows us as Dave Bookless, the one of the key people in Arusha and the whole eco church movement, where he shows us that God doesn't do rubbish. God doesn't do waste. Everything has a value in God's eyes, and that we need to learn to live with that viewpoint, that world view. Everything has a preciousness, um, a deep joy there is in Francis in this sense of giftedness, which actually it's expressed there in the very first line of the poem. Most high, all-powerful good Lord, or Laudato si, o mi Signore. And of course, that's the title of Pope Francis's great encyclical written
Laudato
before
si.
the Paris COP conference in 2015, which is entitled Laudato Si. And if you
Si.
haven't got a copy of that and haven't seen that, I really would encourage you to do so, because it's the most profound theological reflection and philosophical reflection um, on I believe, the crisis, not just the climate crisis, but the whole crisis of our relationship with the world around us. So that's the first thing. Creation as gift, creation as sacrament, creation which has an intrinsic value rather than a utilitarian value, changes the way we live and work and view and relate to the world around us. That's the first thing. The second is that, as you'll see from the canticle in the second stanza, he says, Francis sings, "Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, Sir Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light, and he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor, and bears a likeness of you, Most High One. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. Praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire." His, again, another biographer of Francis, St. Bonaventure, said that Francis called every creature by the name of brother or sister because he saw that we come from the same source. Um, there are lots of stories about all the stories about Francis animals, talks about Francis in relation to using the word brother or sister in relation to each creature that he embraces and relates to. There's a deep sense of fraternity in Francis. Um, it's said that Francis had a piety towards every creature, which sounds a bit sort of religious, po-faced religious, doesn't it? But in fact, pietas in medieval Latin was the obligation which one had to a member of one's own blood, one's own family. He had a piety. He recognized that relationship, that family relationship there is between us. Now, this might sound a bit fanciful, um, calling every creature by the name of brother or sister, because we come from the same source. And incidentally, that same source becomes one with us in the incarnation as well, which Francis also blew Francis's mind. And we have that deep relationship with and through with everything through Christ, who has come and participated in our life. It may sound fanciful, but of course it's actually true. I mean, it's I think it's 98% of our genes we share with those of an orangutan, and I think it's 60% of our genes we share with those of a banana. We're made of the same stuff. We are stardust. We are of the earth, like everything else. We belong to what's around us, to the chair that you're sitting in, to the walls of the room which you're sitting in. We are of the same stuff. There is a fundamental interdependence uh, between everything that exists, ourselves included. And again, this is something which our contemporary culture and society has lost. It's basically, we think of nature as out there. It's somewhere else. We are apart from nature. We are above nature. Um, we don't belong to nature. We've lost that sense of belonging, that deep interconnectedness. Um, uh,
Yeah.
all our actions, of course, have an effect. I mean, there's the argument is people will be arguing about how much the carbon emissions actually do cause uh, climate change. And the argument goes on. I mean, the vast majority of scientists, of course, say that it does, and the vast majority of oil executives say that it's not nearly so bad or not nearly so direct as we think it is. Um, but actually, everything that we do has an effect. Um, it was said by Franz Capra that a butterfly's wings, butterfly flapping its wings over Hong Kong, can result in a cyclone over Europe. Everything has a knock-on effect. Primitive societies, or so-called primitive societies, have a deep understanding of this. When I was in the Solomon Islands, there was on the island of Ugi, miles away from anywhere. uh, we we would go fishing, and there was a very, very strong prohibition on taking turtles out of the sea below a certain size. It was a fundamental thing, and frankly, if if one had taken a young turtle out of the sea, you would have been in deep, deep trouble from the local people. They themselves policed that. They knew that to overfish or to overtake certain species was dangerous. Dangerous. It threatened their life. They looked after. They had a deep sense of relationship with the natural world. Or the Amazon, the people of the Amazonian rainforest will know, will be sense about the early arrival of a bird, of a migrating bird. They will know um, that something's up. They will listen to they will read the natural world. They'll read creation. Um, Again, we've lost that sense of seeing. That way of seeing. We've become detached from nature. We've lost the art of attention. Um, I love David Attenborough's wonderful programs, which probably I'm sure you yourselves have seen, and he's remarkable how he continues to go on and produce them. Remarkable programs on the natural world. They're wonderful, but we see them through a screen. What we need to do is to get out there and actually see it with our own eyes, sense it, feel it, with all our senses, the natural world, engage with the natural world. Our technology is distancing ourselves from the world around us, or is danger of distancing ourselves. Um, Actually, to be in touch is of fundamental importance. Everything we have these days is mediated by the market, actually. I wonder how many of us actually know where our breakfast or our lunch or the dinner that we've had today actually have come from, apart from the supermarket shelf. We might have bought British, or we might have bought um, um, organic or whatever, but very, very little connection at all with the food that we eat or the materials that we use. How do we recover that sense of kinship? So the first thing is the Francis is this sacramental way of looking at the world, that everything reveals the nature of the giver, everything itself. If there's a deep and therefore a deep reverence for everything by being what it is, Secondly, there's this deep kinship which we need to recover if we are to make good decisions um, for the world and for the future. And lastly, um, it's of course it is a song which Francis not so much sings for the creation around him, giving thanks to God for everything that is. He sings with. Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures. Um, there's a deep sense within him that he's joining in the song which is already going on in creation. Creation itself, by being what it is, gives praise to God. Um, and what he sees himself doing is simply is joining the song. Um, Everything gives praise to God by being what it is. A later theologian, a Franciscan theologian, Duns Scotus, says that everything by because Christ finds its fulfillment in Christ. It's a thing which is picked up by Gerard Manley Hopkins in his poetry. If you know, as kingfishers catch fire, it's an expression of that sense that everything does Christ, points towards, finds its true end in Christ. Creation is not an end in itself. Creation itself gives praise to God. Um, and our job is to join the song. Our job is to sing in tune. Our job is to learn harmony. Again, we live in a deeply discordant world, which has lost the tune, which no longer can hear the voice, no longer can join the praise. Um, Richard Thornbury, who manages the land at Hillfield Friary. And if you are going to Hillfield next year, you'll meet and no doubt meet him because there's a whole project there of living sustainably and wisely according to Franciscan principles. He would say, well, you have to garden um, in tune with the creation itself. You have to learn how to go with the grain of nature, not simply cut across it. You don't blast the soil with pesticides. Rather, you find the way in which creation itself can work. You can work with it and it can work with you. A lot of the thing about conservation, frankly, is just making room for the rest of creation. It's about us getting out of the way rather than imposing our ideas, our plan, our needs onto creation. Um, So, how do we, how do we, how do we reverence creation? And what would it mean if we do? How do we live in kinship with creation, recognizing our interdependence or regain our sense of kinship? And how do we join the song? How do we sing with creation, sing in harmony and in a sense join the choir? I think it actually make should make us think about what we mean by worship. We think that worship so often is about going to church. Um, but if the whole of creation itself is, then maybe we have to narrow an idea of, of what we mean by worship. Um, in 1992, 93, there was a Songs of Praise program on television. For those of you who are in the UK will know what I mean by that. Basically um, a joining and singing hymns from different churches and different congregations. The Songs of Praise on that occasion was from Windsor Castle after the restoration following the Great Fire there in 1991, 92. Um, they interviewed one person who'd been a been a carpenter, a joiner working on the restoration of the roof with I mean, a 2-year project, a massive project. He said, I can't tell you what it means to have been able to work on this roof for the past 2 years with this team of craftspeople using the best oak from Windsor Great Park. He said, I don't want to choose a hymn for the songs of praise. This roof itself is my song of praise, is a song of praise. Let the roof itself sing. Um, how do we let creation sing? How do we listen to creation singing? How do we learn to sing in tune with the grain of nature rather than ignoring it or being deaf to it or working against it? So those are three things, I think, from the Canticle of the Creatures, which I would suggest um, have some bearing on what is being discussed in Brazil from next Monday over the next 11 days. It's something I think as I said, I think Francis can offer us that radical reorientation which Jonathan Porritt recognized as needed even more than a cut in carbon emissions. So, over to you. I don't know how you want to do this, whether you want to be in a breakout groups or.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Sam. I have to admit, I was one of those who went to Assisi earlier this year. One of the joys for me was going down to San Damiano. And as you probably know, as you go down, there is I would say a wayside shrine. It's not, but it talks about St. Francis writing the Canticle. And what I hadn't realised was that one, it was near his death, two, he was in pain, and three, he couldn't stand the sunlight at that point. So
blind,
such a vision in the Canticle was mind-blowing to me. And it's been a real joy this evening to have you go into depth into parts of the Canticle for us and make us think more of what it means and also link it to what's happening at COP30. So thank you for your talk this evening.
Yes,
it's been fascinating. And hope it's not another 30 years before we see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
indeed, Bob. Thank you.